Good morning. Just want to make sure that everybody had an opportunity to pick up a National Park Service brochure. Some housekeeping. Use of this while I speak is entirely optional. You can look at this now or you can look at it at home. On one side, you will find the map of the entire path of the Kings Mountain Men, a 330-mile trail. The dark line is the actual commemorative motor route that you can drive using existing highways, and the lighter one is the actual footpath or the horse trail that the men took. There's other background information and photos on the other side. You're welcome to keep this. I will also have audio-visual slides and remarks along with these guys, so it's entirely up to you, okay? Just want to let you know. All right. Also, we'll be videotaping today, just the three of us only, no audience. Leanne Hunter has agreed to do that. She is a member here. She also is previously served as superintendent of the Abingdon Muster Grounds and has made invaluable contributions not only there, but to the Overmountain Victory National Historic Trail and the nonprofit, the Overmountain Victory Trail Association. So, explaining a few terms, the Overmountain Victory National Trail preserves the route of the Kings Mountain Men. It involves 14 different historic sites, covers 330 miles in 4 states. It was created in 1980, and the Abingdon Muster Ground is the northern trailhead of this. The Overmountain Victory Trail Association, which we are also all members of, is a nonprofit group whose mission is to preserve, protect, and interpret the route of the Battle to Kings Mountain. It was founded in 1975. Joella is a charter member of that group. And it's basically a volunteer arm of the National Park Service supporting the Overmountain Victory National Historic Trail. We are also members, as was mentioned, of the local chapters of the National Society, Daughters of the American Revolution, and Sons of the American Revolution, which are historic genealogical societies. I also want to just draw your attention to why are we talking today, what's so important about what I'm going to discuss. Because most of what I'm about to tell you is not in your history books. How many of you know that there is a National Park Service certified site, Revolutionary War site in Abingdon? Yes. Did you know that one of only 21 National Historic Trails in the United States starts in Abingdon? How many of you have heard of the Southern Campaign of the Revolutionary War? Good. How about the Battle of Kings Mountain itself? Yay! Very good. The Battle of Kings Mountain was a militia engagement, and the Patriots from this area, the eastern side of the Carolinas, were basically the Minutemen of the Southern Appalachians. We know about Lexington and Concord. These guys were Minutemen or militiamen too. Did you know the Battle of Kings Mountain was the largest militia engagement of the entire Revolutionary War? And it also was the highest elevated campaign of the entire Revolutionary War. And both sides agree, Patriot and British, that the Battle of Kings Mountain was the turning point of the Revolutionary War, pivoting in favor of the Patriots. A few local points, because what I'm going to be doing is tying in the impact of local citizens, militiamen, religious organizations, religious leaders from this area and from specific communities within Washington County. So keep in mind, at this time period, in 1768, William Campbell from Washington County, Virginia, moves to this area, and he was later selected as the overall commander of all the Patriot militia in this battle. In 1770, bear with me a second. Sinking Spring Presbyterian Church the congregation was founded. You're familiar with that church downtown? This is a rendering of the original log meeting house in downtown Wolf Hills, I guess you would say, about 1770. What a lesser known but as important congregation was the Ebbing Spring Presbyterian Church. And this is the Ebbing Spring. It's south of Glade. It's on private property. I'm not going to divulge the exact location, but it's on the north bank of the Middle Fork of the Holston River. Oh, shoot. Okay. How do I exit? Sorry. Actually, that's what I want. This is the actual photograph of the spring. It's pretty unique. It varies up and down level-wise in a matter of minutes. Just a little bit up the bank from this is the original location of Ebbing Spring Presbyterian Church. Okay, this is a marker. As you can see, it was placed by Old Glade Presbyterian Church. This church existed in 1771 for about 15 years only. And then after about 15 years, it pretty much dissolved because Glade Spring Presbyterian Church and the more southerly Rock Spring Presbyterian Church were founded in the area. They were much easier to get to. And then in 1773, the Reverend Charles Cummings, the fighting parson, arrives to minister to not only Sinking Spring Presbyterian Church, but Ebbing Spring Presbyterian Church, south of Glade. This is a picture of his homestead, which was relocated to the cemetery at Sinking Spring Presbyterian Church. Also, in the year of our independence, William Campbell and Elizabeth Henry, the sister of Patrick Henry, marry and come to Southwest Virginia. That same year, Joseph Black constructs Black's Fort in Wolf Hills and establishes a trading post. The next year, the first court of Washington County is held. Washington County was carved out of Fincastle County, and of course it was named for George Washington. In 1778, Abingdon came into existence by an act of the Virginia Assembly. Okay, a little bit on the lead up to Kings Mountain. By 1780, it's been 5 years since Lexington and Concord. There have been many battles, mostly in the northern colonies. Things have pretty much drawn to a stalemate. I'm sorry, I keep forgetting to hit pause. So the British hatch a plan called their Southern Strategy. They decide that they're going to go down to the southern colonies where they think they'll find lots of loyalist supporters. They will raise large militias, and they will simply divide and conquer the colonies by driving a wedge from the south up. Didn't quite turn out that way. General Cornwallis, the British commander, moves south. Okay, you have to remember, Savannah, Charleston, and Camden, South Carolina fall in lockstep. Both of those colonies are under complete control of the British. Cornwallis puts into place a guy by the name of Major Patrick Ferguson, a Scotsman. Boo-hoo. He is in charge of Cornwallis's left flank. So Patrick Ferguson is running up and down the east side of the mountains in western South Carolina and North Carolina, drumming up loyalist militia. Ferguson engages with several patriot militia in battles, including the Overmountain or the Backcountry Men. That's us. We live on the west side of the Appalachians. We are actually here illegally. By the decree of 1763 by King George III, no white settlers are supposed to be on the west side of the mountains. That didn't stop us. In September of 1780, Ferguson brilliantly decides to threaten the Overmountain Men. He issues a threat via a released prisoner, and he says, and I quote, "If you do not desist your opposition to the British arms, I shall march this army over the mountain, hang your leaders, and lay waste your country with fire and sword." That did not impress the folks on the western side of the Appalachians very much. They are Scots-Irish Presbyterians. They have no love lost for the British. They decide they're not waiting for Ferguson to come to them. They're going to Ferguson. So Isaac Shelby, from what's now Bristol, Virginia, solicits support from John Sevier, who's a little bit farther south in the Tennessee Territory, and William Campbell of Virginia, and Charles McDowell of western North Carolina. Okay, this is a picture of the Abingdon muster grounds. This was where the northernmost and first muster of the initial group of men met. On September 24th, 1780, a call to arms had been issued previously. This group was led by William Campbell. He gathered 400 men from all over southwest Virginia along Wolf Creek. These were citizen soldiers. They literally stopped their harvest, stepped off their farms, stopped their preparations for their winter long hunts, showed up at Wolf Creek, and they brought everything that they would need with them. Nothing was provided. When they came, they did not know how long they would be gone. They did not know if they would come back alive. So families gathered to say goodbye. And of course, the Reverend Charles Cummings, the fighting parson, delivered a parting prayer. The next rendezvous, the next day, is at Fort Watauga. This is, fire. As you can tell, I'm not a techno weenie. Yes, yes, please. Sorry, I can't do two things at once. All right, Fort Watauga is present-day Elizabethton, and that's where Sycamore Shoals State Park is located. On the 25th of September, the very next day, Campbell's 400 men meet up with another 600 militiamen, citizen soldiers, led by Sevier and Shelby, and the Reverend Samuel Doak, another Presbyterian minister who went on to help found Tusculum University, delivers a powerful send-off sermon. These 11,000 men on horseback, they're mounted, head east toward Roan Mountain. The only extra supply they have with him is 500 pounds of gunpowder made by a woman at Fort Watauga named Mary Patton. They also try to take some cows with them so they have something to eat, but they have to send them back because they're slowing them down. So on the next day, the 26th, they stop at Shelving Rock. That's between Elizabethton and Roan Mountain. And it was a shelter for the powder when they encountered a rainstorm. They skirt Roan Mountain and cross into North Carolina at Yellow Mountain Gap. You can see how rough the terrain is there. Yellow Mountain Gap has an elevation of 4,700 feet. Not as high, they didn't actually go over the peak of Roan Mountain. But at Yellow Mountain Gap, they're at 4,700 feet, which is the highest elevation of any engagement in the Revolutionary War. The next morning, they encounter snow shoe-mouth deep. Meanwhile, switching gears to the east side of the Appalachians, at Elkin, North Carolina, there is another muster that occurs 3 days after the Abingdon men meet. 350 men gather there under Winston and Cleveland. They head southwest along the Yadkin River. They are headed to a place called Quaker Meadows, where they're going to meet the eastern leg, the men from what is now Virginia and Tennessee. Quaker Meadows is present-day Morganton, North Carolina. On September 30th, they get there and are basically hanging out at the homes of Charles and Joseph McDowell. At this point, there are almost 1,400 militiamen gathered. A couple of days later, William Campbell is selected as the overall leader of the Kings Mountain Men. Meanwhile, where the heck is Ferguson? They've crossed the mountains. They've gathered 1,400 men. They want to hunt him down. He's nowhere to be found. They think he's in Gilberttown, North Carolina, which is just south of present-day Asheville. They head there, but when they get there, he's not there. So, based on scouting reports, they think he's headed southwest to an outpost in South Carolina called Fort 96, about 60 miles south of Greenville. The next day, at Alexander's Ford, these 14 men, they're on the Green River. They run into a Patriot militia leader from South Carolina, and he says, no, the Ferguson has faked you guys out. He's headed eastbound to Charlotte. In Charlotte, Cornwallis is quartered with thousands of British troops. So the race is on. All parties, North Carolina, Virginia, Tennessee, South Carolina, agree to meet at a place called the Cowpens, about 30 miles to the southeast. These Patriot militia know they cannot stop. They must engage Ferguson immediately. Kings Mountain, which is a little bit to the east of Cowpens, is only 35 miles from Charlotte. If Ferguson makes it to Charlotte or is reinforced by Cornwallis's troops from Charlotte, all bets are off. So they rendezvous at the Cowpens, very famous location. On the 6th, they are joined by another 400 Patriot militia under James Williams. This brings the total count to almost 2,000 Patriot militia, regular average citizens. Now, you have to keep in mind at this point, the Virginians who've come the farthest on horseback have covered 200 miles in 12 days with very little food. So the force leaves the cow pens at 9 o'clock the night of the 6th in the pouring rain. By the next morning, they cross successfully the flooding Broad River. At 3 o'clock the next afternoon, they come upon Ferguson and his 1,100 militia on the top of Little Kings Mountain, a mere 35 miles from Charlotte. So what happens in the battle? Briefly, I'm going to give you the highlights. The rain stops as they get there. The Patriots are able to approach completely undetected thanks to the wet weather. There's no dust, no rustling leaves, no noise. They surround the mountain. Now, this is not a mountain by our standards. This is a hill by our standards. It is about 60 feet above the surrounding terrain. Now, the Loyalists line up European style. That's how they've been trained, in line with their wildly inaccurate Brown Bess muskets. The Patriots fight Indian style, what we call guerrilla style. They've got their long rifles. They snipe. So the Patriots, their guns, their long rifles, American made, are accurate to 4 times the distance of the lousy British weapons. So the Loyalists, their musket fire overshoots the Patriot targets. They're shooting downhill. The Patriots, with their highly accurate long rifles, are shooting uphill. Their shots hit the mark. The Patriots snipe and pick off the Loyalists one by one. What is Ferguson doing? Well, he's up on top. He's running back and forth on his horse. He's really completely oblivious to the fact that he is exposed on both sides to Patriot fire on all sides. He wears a red checkered shirt over his British uniform. He is the only British subject there. Ferguson is soon shot, and shot many times, but the first killing shot is credited to Robert Young, a 62-year-old militiaman from Fort Watauga, who shoots him with his musket named Sweet Lips after his wife. In 65 minutes, the 900 Patriots kill, wound, or capture all 1,100 Loyalists. In 65 minutes, these unlikely band of Minutemen, militiamen, average citizens, wipe out the entire left flank of the Southern British Army. Immediately afterwards, I'll get to the battle stats in just a second, and I'm almost done. Sorry for the length. The Patriots leave swiftly. They fly back across the mountains. They are scared to death that Cornwallis and his nasty guy, Bloody Band Tarleton, are coming after them. Some of the Patriots stay to take the 700 prisoners, march them to the Moravian towns, which is Winston-Salem today. Cornwallis and his troops, as soon as they hear of the defeat, immediately hightail it from Charlotte to South Carolina, to Winnsboro, which is just above Columbia. This unlikely Patriot victory allowed the Patriot forces to regroup and resupply, ultimately drawing Cornwallis northeast to a place called Yorktown, ultimately surrendering 12 months and 12 days after the amazing victory at Kings Mountain. Now, let me bring it home for you about what happened to our men. Of the entire Loyalist force, about 300 were killed. That's 25% of the force. By contrast, the Patriots had 28 killed, 3%. 60% of the Loyalists were captured as prisoners. Of the 28 deaths on the Patriot side, 16, almost 60%, were from Washington County, Virginia. 3 of those 16 Washingtonians were from one family, the Edmiston family, of which Joella and Mac are direct descendants. In that family, 5 men went on the campaign. 3 died. 1 was wounded. Only 1 made it back unharmed. And I turn it over to Mistress Edmiston.
I'm not real.
I'm on fire.
Somewhere.
Now, is it on? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I'm not real good with a microphone. I usually just stand down at the muster grounds and shout. My brother and I have the distinction of having 8 grandfathers who fought at the Battle of Kings Mountain, partly because 5 of our ancestors were raised over in what we would now know as either Lodi, Friendship, Kelly's Chapel. Any of y'all familiar with those places? The Edmonstons, now known as Edmondsons. Lieutenant William Edmonston had a 4,000-acre land grant from the governor for his services when he came over, brought his family and a whole bunch of people from Ireland to what's now Rockbridge County, and many of those families that he was associated with, along with other families, would later come to Washington County, and over 200 would sign something called the Call to Parson Cummings, because you see, we were all just die-hard Presbyterians. And they were the people who originally established Ebbing Springs. The important thing about the Edmonstons is that Major Edmonston at Kings Mountain, who after William Campbell's death would become Colonel Campbell, because the county only had 2 colonels at one time. He had been an Indian fighter. He had been in many, many battles. He knew how to train his soldiers. He knew how to fight. And all of the what we would now call Scotch-Irish Presbyterians or Scotch-Irish men were very good fighters. It is said that some men could go out with maybe 25 bullets if they had those, and they might even be able to shoot 24 squirrels and only lose 1 bullet. Anyway, okay. One thing else I want you to know, we're big participants in the Abingdon Muster Grounds. This is because the Abingdon Muster Grounds is considered, like they said, the northernmost trailhead of the Over Mountain Victory Trail. It is our, I guess for 25 years now, well, in the beginning, a gentleman named Blair Keller. I hope some of you had the pleasure of knowing Blair Keller. He was a real character. I retired from Louisa County and came home in the year 2000. I'd been home 1 month when Blair Keller called me on the phone and said, "Joelle, yes, Blair, I want you to be at the muster grounds," which we now call. "I want you to be down there. I want you to have 2 big kettles of soup because we're having our annual meeting." And they had been meeting since about 1975 with people who had gone and with descendants. So the muster grounds is at a very interesting place. We've now been given money by the town of Abingdon, the OVTA, which is, she said, is the volunteer arm of the Over Mountain Victory National Historic Trail. And we're going to be having the opportunity to expand our programming. We're going to be having an opportunity to expand our outreach. Many of you may have had children or grandchildren who in the last 18 years has come to Abingdon each fall to the call to arms. Leanne over here has been responsible for doing that along with some of the rest of us. We're all volunteers. And that has been, I think, a great program that we've been able to do. In 3 days, we had this year, about 900 kids from all around, and we talk about the Battle of Kings Mountain. The other aspect of this is also that I think, we need to remember, or we don't ever need to let our Revolutionary War period history pass on. And so this gives us a wonderful opportunity to add to the many venues of history that we already have going on in Washington County. Now, go back up. Have I got 2 minutes left? I only have 10 minutes. First of all, I came in here with these boots on, and I want you ladies to know.
Hold your mic up.
I'm sorry. I want you ladies. I have my boots on. I want you ladies to know that's not what you would have worn unless you had the regular boots like the men were wearing, because these were women's shoes in that day and time. I also want you to know that this was the common dress, although in hot weather women would take everything off down to their shift here, maybe. And this was the common dress for a man in the backcountry. If he got real hot out working, he may have taken off his jacket, his waistcoat down to his pants. But anyway, we didn't dress. My point is, I want you to know we didn't dress like that. We didn't have a lot of fancy dress. Most of us had 3 or 4 dresses, pegs on the wall. That's where we hung our clothes. And I can't say enough about Colonel William Edmonston. Many of you are probably familiar with one half of what was now his home. It's in what used to be the, I think Rocky Underwood owned it last, and it belonged to the Hillman family. It's a log cabin. I don't remember the street it's on, but anyway, I think a couple now has a bed and breakfast there. I've tried to call them to see if I could bring.
Are you referring to Edmondson Hall in Meadowview?
No, I'm a refer. Go ahead.
Sorry.
The Emery House in Emery. Half of that cabin is the part of the original Edmondson cabin. So we do have a wonderful history. We appreciate the opportunity to come and talk to you all. And in days to come, when we get fully open again, we hope you will come and visit us and let us tell you, because many presidents have said, this was the war that turned the tide for the world. We have such a wonderful history. You may not be able to really talk to me because, as you can tell, I've about outlived my usefulness, although I'm not giving up until somebody refuses to give me a ride to Abingdon. You want to tell a little bit about your gun? No? Well, short.
Use the mic, okay? So everybody can hear you.
What would you like to know about the gun, about the rifle? This is a 50 caliber. It's a rifle bore. It's accurate up to about 1,000.
Mac, hold it close up.
It's accurate to about 100 yards. That's why we had the advantage over the British. They used brown Besses, which had a smooth bore, very inaccurate. You could load anything in them and it'd just splatter everywhere, no distance. It takes, if you're real good, you could load this about 2 times a minute. You have to prime it, load it, and time you do all that, it takes about 20 to 30 seconds to do that if you're good. Now, I'm not that good. Anything else any questions?
Just want to comment that if you'll notice, Mac's hunting jacket is fringed, and that was purposeful because those fringes wick away the moisture. So it's very good for the climate here, as far as keeping you dry and keeping you warm. Good question. I'm not sure. That sounds logical. Oh, she was asking if the fringe on the hunting jacket came from the indigenous people, because they fringed a lot of their clothing, especially the Cherokee and others. So I don't actually know the answer to that, but it certainly sounds logical.
Probably so.
Any other questions? And we'll be available afterwards, any of us, to talk to you one-on-one. Yes.